It is the Week 3 MLS Power Rankings show. We are back, running it back from 1 through 27. We will start with the top teams just so we're giving the folks that are earning the attention, let's say, the most of it. And we start at number 1, Doyle, with the Seattle Sounders. Jeremiah, anytime you're here, jump in, man. Doyle, we might have been wrong. In fact, we probably were wrong about the Sounders. There was a lot of talk coming out of Seattle about the offseason moves, about mostly the losses and not the replacements, about how they weren't going to be as good as in years past. The team that was basically perennial in MLS Cup and always sort of at the upper echelon of trophy contenders. Why did we get this wrong? What did we miss?
A number of reasons. One being the switch to the 3-5-2 has really emphasized some of the strengths of this roster, even after losing Jordan Morris for the year, and even with Nico Lodeiro mostly gone for 3 games. The way that that formation works, it puts the impetus on ball retention at the sort of base of that midfield. And between João Paulo and Josh Atencio in the first 2 games, and then Kellen Rowe, who played maybe the best game I've ever seen Kellen Rowe play in that 3rd game against the Galaxy, they've been able to hold on to the ball, to get it in good spots, to move the opposition around. And when your defenders and your deep lying midfielders are that clean and that incisive with the ball, that allows you to release both wingbacks. And so it's Brad Smith on the left side. He's got 2 goals and an assist in the last 2 games.
He's representing the ball as well, Doyle.
He's representing us very, very well. He looks like Agent 47 from the video game. And then Alex Roldan has been, like, I liked Alex Roldan last year. I think he was kind of unfairly blamed for the MLS Cup performance, but he was clearly learning the position. The way he's playing this year, it looks like he's been a right wing back his entire life. So those 2 guys are both able to get forward, and suddenly it's the 2 front runners and the 2 wide players. And then that has allowed Christian Roldan to pick his spots and make the kinds of runs that he wants. He's good on the ball. He's not, he doesn't look like a Babello Reynoso type wizard of a number 10. But what he is devastating off the ball. So his ability to find those spots, to either open gaps for the other players or to create overloads like we saw on the Brad Smith goal against the Galaxy. He's brilliant. He's been brilliant. So it's all just clicking. And the fact that it's clicking in spite of the fact that they lost essentially 2 best 11 players in Lodeiro and Morris for the start of this year, in spite of the fact that they lost their 2 starting fullbacks from last year in Jones and Leardam, Brian Schmetzer deserves a ton of credit. Brian Schmetzer deserves a ton of credit for everything that has happened with the Sounders thus far in 2021.
Absolutely, he does. I love watching Christian Roldan right now. It feels a little bit like, I don't know, there's point guard aspects to it, of controlling space, understanding space, knowing where to push the players around you so that they go to the right position, and having the wherewithal to see it and make that pass. And then there's aspects of controlling space without the ball, which is very unpoint guard like in a lot of ways. Like he wouldn't be ball dominant, let's say, but you just kind of feel like when he's out there right now, everything around him is a little bit slow, and he understands, whether he sees it or not, or whether you see him looking that way or not, where the ball needs to go next, or where he needs to go next to open up space for his teammates. Jeremiah, jump in here, man. 2 spots up are the Seattle Sounders to number 1 in these Week 3 power rankings. What did people miss? Did you miss it? And what has you excited right now about the Sounders?
Well, I think people missed it. I think and I'll include myself in that. I mean, I thought the Sounders would be good. I think I've said this before, that I thought that they would be in the playoff race, maybe even in the middle of the playoffs by the summer, when I assumed they would add some talent. I didn't see them kind of being, 2-0-1 through what looked like a really tough start to their schedule. So I don't think there's any shame in being caught off guard by the degree to which they're good. And I think a big part of that is that this formation has just worked out so much better than I think even the Sounders thought it was going to. They use this formation originally it was conceived as a way to kind of bridge some gaps and make the most out of things. And instead it's turned into this really dynamic formation that I don't know. I think it's hard to imagine. We've had this conversation. It's like, well, what happens when Jordan Morris comes back next year? If this formation works so well, can he play as like a second forward? Can he play? Can he play somewhere else other than as a pure winger? Because it's been that good that you at least need to think about that possibility. I still think that the best formation is probably going to be a 4-2-3-1 once they have Jordan back next year. But it's just crazy that you were even having this conversation.
What do they do in the summer? Because that's always the question with the Sounders. Lodeiro comes back. They haven't even needed him. They rolled over LA this weekend. Chicharito was on his run. Now he's not. Maybe he could regain it for El Tráfico on Saturday. What do you think Garth would want to do in the summer?
My suspicion is that they were already looking at mainly at a U22 type player. I don't think there was a lot of money. They've already said they aren't going to go out and sign, I don't think they can sign a young DP, but they're not going to go spend young DP like money. In part because they don't feel like they can do as thorough of a scouting job as they want to do. Clearly you can sign people. You can sign really good players right now. That's been shown. Lots of teams are willing to do that. The Sounders just aren't inclined to commit, a 5-year contract and 8 figures on a player who they haven't been able to watch in person extensively, that they may not have even been able to meet in person at this point. So I think they're going to be a little bit more conservative in terms of how much, but I think that also, the way that they're playing right now also allows them to maybe roll the dice on a younger player with more upside who they don't have to commit as much money to up front. So my suspicion is that they might not sign someone who immediately has a huge impact. I don't know that they're going to go out and sign a veteran TAM. I mean, that shouldn't be out of the question. I think they probably could do that. They're planning to hold on to at least 2 of their 3 international spots for the summer. So, maybe they sign a young guy and they sign an older veteran on a 1-year contract or something. But I don't know what position that is right now, in part because I don't we would have originally thought that they were going to go out and sign a winger, and I don't know if we can assume that anymore.
3 p.m. this weekend, Sunday, Portland hosting the Seattle Sounders on ABC. That's part of a doubleheader on ABC. Miami and Atlanta are right before that one. Before I let you go here, Jeremiah, first of all, the player that has you most excited, maybe off the obvious side of things, and then what do you think about this match? Because we've seen what MLS teams have done post-CCL matches. This is an opportunity to maybe smack down the Timbers.
It is. It's definitely there is. This is the meme of the guy in the jacket rubbing his hands together a little bit. If we're going for memes,
that's just Anders right now all day. He doesn't even know why. He's just like, I'm rubbing my hands together and anticipating something great, but I can't figure out what it is.
Right. No, I think that's pretty apt. You got to like the Sounders' chances in this one. Who knows? It's MLS, right? There's lots of things that happen, but I think you gotta like the Sounders' chances in this one. If I'm gonna, I am excited about Josh Atencio. I've been kind of making it a thing, driving that hype train. But I'm not gonna. I'll go away from that. He's getting plenty of hype. As excited as I am about seeing him healthy, I'll go a different direction. I was really encouraged by Kellen Rowe actually this week. I don't necessarily think that he was. I still think the Sounders missed Atencio, and so I won't say that Rowe completely filled that gap. But I did not know that he had that sort of defensive performance in them. I think, best I could tell, he set career highs for tackles, and he set career highs for pressures, which is not something I expected from him. I mean, that was a high-energy game. He set himself up for a couple decent chances, and he really, it was a shame he didn't have a goal. It looked like his reaction thought he had one, but I'm excited to see Kellen Rowe in a Sounders Timbers rivalry. How's that? 2
posts for Kellen.
Double
that
doink.
Was an incredible piece of physics there. Thank you, Jeremiah. You can follow his work at Sounders at Heart. This was the tweet, by the way, or the text, Doyle, if you don't remember, from Anders the other day as Kellen Rowe was living what is Anders' dream. He says, "This is what I want for my life, to go out, move across the country, do your dream job, then get paid to go back and live in Seattle." That is producing Anders in a nutshell. Let's keep it rolling at number 2, New England Revolution. They had a nice little win this weekend against Atlanta United. Not at their very, very best, Doyle, but we said it before the year. Just seems like a team that's going to get cohesive over the course of the year, and if they have Carlos Hill, they'll be at the very, very top.
they're cohesive already, right? And he'll show this last weekend why he's considered one of the best number 10s in the league. Still have the same issues and the same questions that I did at the start of the season, which is like, can the Revs be an explosive attacking and scoring team if they don't have Buxa and Bo out there on the field at the same time? And if they do have Buxa and Bo out there on the field at the same time, will they have enough in the middle of the park to exert control against the very best teams? Because right now, if they don't have that 2 forward lineup, then you get performances like this last weekend where they look really great, but they need a controversial penalty in order to escape with a 2-1 home win over what was essentially the Atlanta United B team. So I'm like, right now, the Revs have a really high floor. I don't think they'll drop out of like the top 6 in these power rankings, but this number 2 feels like too high a ceiling for this team, because like unless Buxa starts being a guy who can score more than once every 3 games, or one of the wingers really hits and becomes a goal scoring threat, like they're stuck in this limbo where in order to reach that high ceiling, they have to sacrifice their floor, and in order to keep that floor high, they have to sacrifice their ceiling. In short, they need their DP number 9 to be a DP number 9. They need Buxa to go out there and get 20 goals this year, and he does not look like a guy who can go out and do that.
How could you get that out of him?
I don't know. There? You got to give him layups, I guess. His 1 goal this year was a set piece against the Fire. He makes really, like, his movement off the ball is very good. I think he's, he seems pretty smart. He's more athletic looking this year than I thought he was last year, but that final touch in the box just isn't there for him. Now maybe it'll come, right? Maybe all he needs is a string of like 2 or 3 straight games, and then suddenly the confidence flows and there is a little additional chemistry, and that would allow Bruce Arena to drop Gustavo Bo for games against teams like Columbus, because if Bo's on the field against Columbus, New England's essentially saying we're going to have 40% of possession and we're going to have to score on the counterattack. And I don't think that's the way this team wants to play. And I do think that lowers their ceiling. So this is a good team. 2 is higher than I have them, especially because this win, as good as some of the moments were, I think it kind of showed their flaws look, if they gave up a single goal, they're in a little bit of trouble.
They play this weekend in Nashville, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, MLS Live on ESPN+. Right now, number 2 are the New England Revolution, up 2 spots from week 2.
Where did you have them? Wait, where did you have them?
I have them in this spot.
Okay.
I don't think the elite teams around them right now are performing at a level for the power rankings that would justify LAFC or Columbus or maybe a Portland. Certainly not Philly. Like, everybody else is a little bit more distracted right now than are the Revs. And that's why I sort of said, okay, well, what are they building towards? Because to me, I still don't think that this is the ceiling. I think there is a much higher ceiling. It's not that I have more faith in Buxa to be this like dynamo who takes games over. It's that I have more faith in this team to create more gilt-edged scoring chances for him, and for Bruce to figure out a way perhaps to get both of them on the field together. And look, you don't have to play an elite team every game. There are going to be a number of games where they could play both and be in a position to just run it up on people because the rest of the team can do the job. I still think central midfield is a question. What's the right mix? And what's the right mix depending on if you have just Buxa or Bo and Buxa, because that changes things. But I think the Revs are going to be right here all season long. To me, they are top 5, and it's just fluctuation as it goes to form, certainly player, but also club form. And Bruce, I trust on this one. At number 3, LAFC. Drew 1-1 this weekend against the Houston Dynamo. Dynamo fans were not happy about that very, very close onside call that turned on onside for Corey Baird. They got the 1-1 draw. No Carlos Vela in this one. We got Alicia Rodriguez. You know her well from Angels on Parade from SB Nation, doing great work on every little bit of soccer that happens in California. Alicia, what's up? How's your Tuesday morning going?
So far, so good, guys. How you doing?
Good. What's up with Carlos Vela, Alicia? We debated this on Extra Time yesterday. We're not really sure. Is it just the injury? Is that all that there is? Or is there something more here?
I think it's just the injury, to be honest. There's been some talk about his future and kind of what options he has and what he wants to do in the future. I kind of think he's going to take it easy. I don't think he's going to rush into a decision right now. So for me, I think he's just trying to get right with his body and hopefully, overcome the quad injury. It would be nice if it was completely overcome this weekend for El Trafico, but we'll find out. But yeah, I'm not, for somebody who kind of marches to his own drummer, I'm not going to, sit and really ponder too hard over, other off-field issues that other people want to talk about. Because to me, it just doesn't, he's going to do what he wants to do. So let's let's see what happens.
We are those other people, of course. 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. El Trafico on Saturday. The Galaxy hosting LAFC. What does this particular version of El Trafico mean? What's the significance? What's the buildup like?
I think this one's going to be really interesting. I think also, of course, they're all interesting, but with Greg Vanney coming in, obviously the game at the weekend against the Sounders was, as he said, a wake up call, and I think it definitely was. But they seem to be implementing something of a system and putting together some decent performances. The first two games, I think, were largely very positive performances for the Galaxy. But then they got this loss at the weekend, and then LAFC were really upset with their draw. They to them it felt like a loss because they took the lead on the road and then they immediately conceded to the Dynamo. So I think both teams are coming in a similar mindset of we need to get better. Last week wasn't good enough, so I think that's perfect for heading into the rivalry game. And then I think both teams think that they can win this game. They think that they're good, and so I think that's going to make it all the better when it comes to the actual on-field performance. We've seen some really great games in this rivalry over the years, so you don't want to get too carried away and projecting that this could be a really great game. But needless to say, I think there's enough firepower, there's enough defensive frailties on both sides that this could really have some goals, and it could be a lot of fun.
Alicia, who do we think is going to be starting at center forward for LAFC this weekend? Is it going to be Danny Musovski back with Baird on the right and Rossi on the left, or could we see Baird as a center forward, or could we see Rossi as a center forward?
That's a good question. I think, obviously they rotate in a lot of ways during games, so I don't think it's necessarily like something that's really fixed in stone. But I think if Vela is okay to play, I think it'll come down to obviously Baird or Musovski. I think Musovski has done a lot of the dirty work so far, and he set up Baird's first goal this season, and then he got hurt for week 2. But Baird's got 2 goals in 3 games, so there's a lot to like on both sides. And I know that there's been a lot of talk outside of the fan base or outside of the LAFC bubble as far as LAFC not having like a big name to be that number 9. But I actually think right now Musovski and Baird are doing a really good job in the forward line. And I don't necessarily think that they need to upgrade at this point. I think they're kind of doing what we've expected them to do. My hunch is it'll probably be Baird just because he's been producing, but I could see either one of those guys starting. And obviously if both Baird and Musovski start, then Musovski will be the number 9 and Baird will be probably on the right.
Nobody knows more about MLS soccer period in California than does Alicia. Go follow her, Soccer Musings. Angels on Parade is where you can catch that LAFC coverage. SB Nation has a ton of her work. We'll leave you here, Alicia, with this question because I backed off my LAFC Supporters Shield prediction after 3 weeks. It was that quick for me, and it really comes down, in my opinion, to Carlos Vela and kind of what you were talking about, that he marches the beat of his own drum, and if he's not there and productive all year long, I'm not sure that this is a team that's going to accumulate points in that manner. Did I pull the trigger too early on that? Are they still a team that you think could win the Supporters Shield? Do they even want to?
I definitely think they want to. I think it's a little too early just because they haven't lost a game yet. I mean, even though they've had a couple of draws, I think the draw against Seattle was something that they were pretty satisfied with under the circumstances. And again, the draw against the Dynamo, they weren't satisfied with. But yeah, it's only 3 weeks in. They haven't lost a game. They haven't given up a ton of goals. So, the kind of the markers that we would normally say are red flags. I don't know. I'm not really ready to to write them off just yet. But obviously, there's a lot of teams in MLS these days, so there's going to be a lot of competition for the Shield. So it should be really interesting to follow.
The voice of reason here. Talk me back off the cliff here. Thank you, Alicia. We appreciate you. At Soccer Musings on Twitter. Big El Tráfico coming up this weekend. LA hosting LAFC on Saturday on Fox, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, on Fox, 8 p.m. Eastern. El Tráfico. This weekend, let's go to number 4. That is the Columbus Crew. Doyle, I'm still having convulsions from late game against Monterrey. It still hurts me. They're down 2 spots from number 2 after week 2. Look, this weekend was not like a vintage performance by any means for the Crew, but that's been the case for every single MLS team. And by the way, Liga MX teams coming out of CCL play. 0-0 against Montreal. Montreal won the expected goals battle in this one by a pretty significant margin. I guess
outshot the Crew 20-3.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! But
I'm 0% worried about the Crew. I'm just 0%. Like it's tough to start the season juggling CCL and regular season play. The fact that they did it this week without Jonathan Mensah, with Jossie Zardes hurt for a good chunk of everything that happened. Dealing with, remember they lost Aiden Morris their second game of the season, and he was supposed to be a big part of soaking up some minutes. I think the Crew are going to be fine in the MLS regular season. I still think that of the MLS teams facing Liga MX competition in the CCL, they have the best shot. It's not a great shot though. It just isn't. Getting that late goal was a backbreaker, and even winning 2-1 would have been not the best result in the world. But they're a really good soccer team. They're showing that they have enough depth to ride out some pretty key injuries. They're gonna be fine.
Have you ever dislocated your shoulder?
I have not.
Yeah, see, Giassi did, and apparently played an additional 30 minutes on it in that CCL game. I have dislocated my shoulder playing soccer. I popped it back in and then basically sobbed into a pillow for the next 4 days just because of the soreness and the pain. Jossie Zardes is impressive as a human being. As a goal scorer, as a human being, I believe also as a father. But look, this weekend, they'll take the point. They'll move on. Right now, it's all about Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, in Monterrey, CONCACAF Champions League. Columbus Crew headed there with 2 away goals to overcome. No deficit to overcome because 2-2 was the result in the first leg, but 2 away goals to overcome. They just got to win the game, right? That's the deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Go win in Monterrey.
Just got to win the game. That's it. That's all you got to do on FS2. Tune in if you want to watch that one in Spanish. Let's get to our 5th team here in the power rankings in week 3. Orlando City. Julia Poe is going to join us here. Julia, if you're there, jump on. Up 4 spots for Orlando. Got to win against Cincinnati this weekend. Still stuck with that moment from Nani just turning Yuya Kubo into a pretzel and then depositing on the left side of the goal. It's beautiful stuff. They got up within 30 seconds.
33
via
seconds.
Tesho.
Yeah.
These are the games that the good teams win and make sort of boring. And Orlando did that in a lot of ways. Where do they stand for you right now with the news we see now that Alexander Pato did have surgery? It seems like to clean it up rather than to fix things.
Yeah.
I think 3 to 6 weeks was what the press release said.
I thought it was
Julia
6 to 8.
She'll help us out here, but
Orlando City have been better early in this season than I kind of expected them to be. Not to the degree that Seattle have been better, but certainly on that spectrum somewhere. They cutting Cincinnati up and just being far superior to Cincinnati doesn't mean a ton. But the way they played against Sporting KC the previous weekend, less so against Atlanta in that first week, though they were, I thought, clearly the better team on the day. They have been able to use the ball to move teams around, mostly doing it without Mauricio Pereira, who made his season debut in this game, mostly doing it without João Moutinho, who made a late cameo in this game and is finally back from injury to one degree or another, doing it all without Ori Russell. At the same time, Jegson Mendez has leveled up as a distributor. They're dealing with the injury to Janssen on the back line. Schlegel, who is normally a goalkeeper, we all know, was fine as a center back in this one. Daryl Dike is on loan. Pato gets hurt. Tesho Akindele comes in, and I know Orlando City fans aren't huge fans of Tesho, but he really understands exactly how Oscar Pareja wants to play, and he spearheaded that press, and he just ruined Cincinnati's night. So what I'm talking about here is a team that we haven't seen their A game yet because of all the absences, and I think they've still been clearly the better team in each of their 3 games, and were so to such an extent against Cincinnati that 3-0 felt almost like a little bit of mercy. This could have been 6 or 7-0. And that speaks well to the type of depth and the type of talent on this team.
It'll be a while before we get to Cincinnati, but Julia is here now. You can read her work with the Orlando Sentinel. She's covering Orlando City, the Pride as well, really as well as it's ever been done, and Paul Tenorio did that as well. So, Julia, what's up? As a fellow Kansan, we always love to have you, and there's a lot of news going around the club right now. What is up with this Pato surgery? Originally, there was not going to be surgery. Wasn't going to need surgery. That was the positive, but things seem to have changed.
Yeah, so thanks guys for having me on. This has kind of become a familiar script for Orlando City fans. This happened last year with Dom Dwyer, happened with João Matinho, where, that initial news will come out that someone won't need surgery. They'll get really excited, and then a couple weeks later, it'll be like, actually, you know what, we're going to go in and do it. I think for all things considered, his timeline is 3 to 6 weeks from today. Today was his surgery, and that's not that bad of a timeline. It's not even that far off from what one might have expected just if he was just going at it with recovery and therapy. So it still leaves plenty of runway for him to get back in and to contribute to this team in the summer. So I don't think it's necessarily the worst outcome for Orlando City, but obviously just kind of a little bit of that deja vu after having previous players go through that exact same routine.
Oh, the summer, you say? What might happen in the summer? What could happen in the summer? Daryl DK could be sold in the summer. We saw that loan extended. What was up with those conversations on the loan extension, and what do you think Orlando expects to happen? What do you expect to happen with Daryl?
Yeah, I think with the loan extension, all of the conversations around Daryl from Orlando City are really just based on them wanting to get the most value out of him however they can, whether he's here in Orlando or whether he's on loan or whether eventually he's being transferred. And so when all of those conversations were going down for that week, that's mainly what that was. It was just that, this is a free loan. We can't really let this keep going. That's kind of what they were saying. And they needed to be getting some type of value out of having, their star striker all the way across an ocean playing for a different team. So I think that kind of went down about as routinely as they would have expected to. It was just a couple days of conversation and they were able to get that going. I don't think Barnsley ever considered letting him go for the playoffs. I think that would have been an unwise decision for them. So now Orlando City's really focused on the summer. They want Daryl back. Oscar Pareja is very excited to get Daryl back. He says that anytime we talk about him, he's like, I tell him all the time, I'm waiting for you. And so I think at this point, it's wanting to get him back, get as much value as possible out of him before the summer transfer window. And there's a lot of expectation that there's going to be some major offers coming once he's able to come back and put in a couple months of good shifts here in Orlando.
So that's the sort of timeline that we're thinking about here. There's not he gets done with maybe he sends, Barnsley to the Premier League and then he gets bought and he never comes back to Orlando. There is the very real and the expectation from Oscar that he will be back playing in purple.
Yes, from Oscar's perspective, there's a very real expectation of that. I think that everyone here kind of tempers their expectations. You don't want to speak too ahead when another team is going through the playoffs and trying for a promotion. You don't want to get ahead of yourself there. So obviously there is that possibility, but especially if you talk to Oscar, he's ready for Daryl to be back. He'd like Daryl to be back now, but he understands how the business works. But he definitely, when they can get that man on a plane and back to Orlando, Oscar would be very happy.
Yeah. I'm a little bit on that as well.
I'm gonna put my chip down on does not play for Orlando City in 2021. I know, like, you're obviously more in touch than I am, but given the value he's proved over there, whether it's Barnsley or I think more likely someone else, I just think somebody's going to come in with a Godfather offer that Orlando City have to take. I would be shocked if it was otherwise.
I mean, to be fair, on the flip side of that, the club's been very clear that they will not happily, but they will understandingly let him go with the right offer. I think when we look at it from Oscar's perspective, as a coach, he's always going to want as many minutes as he can get.
Oh, right, for sure.
With Daryl. But I think that's the club and the front office. I mean, that's why your coach isn't necessarily making those decisions. Any coach is going to be eager to have Daryl Dike on their team. I'm sure that Oscar would love it if they would never sell him and he could work with him for forever. He's been very proud of building him into, the striker that he always had the potential to be.
Give us quick thoughts on this start for Orlando, Julian. We'll let you get back to work. I don't know if that's Taquito.
No, that's Julia's dog. Clearly, Julia's dog is ready to go for a run.
Oh.
Yes. Harper is in the background here running paces around the apartment, so apologize for...
Wind sprints. Yeah. That's an athlete right there.
Well, if you hear somebody pounding on my ceiling, that's a 3-year-old Godzilla that's probably in the same exact mental space as Harper right now. 5 points from 3 games, easy 3 against Cincinnati. Julia, this is about the way Oscar figured it would start?
Yeah, I think that, there's obviously Pato his injury is the main thing that was not expected, but I think when you look at where goal production came from, especially last game, having 3 different players get on the board, having Tesho get that early start, I think now that they have Mauricio back in place and at least kind of have a game plan of how they're working around Pato's injury, I think they're kind of where they would have liked to have been at to start the season. And they really are taking a patient approach to it. I mean, even Nani spoke about that after the last game.
All right, Julia Poe, Orlando Sentinel. By Julia Poe on Twitter. Julia, we always love having you on these little casual chats that we do on Twitter Spaces. Go give Harper a walk, man. She needs it. I can feel that energy coming through my headphones.
Good energy, good positive doggo energy.
Number 5, Orlando City. Good, interesting news there on the Daryl Dike side as well as Pato. Let's go to number 6 here and maybe keep it moving, Doyle. NYCFC. Their fans are very, very excited to be second in the Eastern Conference, to have beaten FC Cincinnati and then taken down Philadelphia. 10-man Philadelphia, but look, you can't control Jose Martinez there if you're NYCFC. You just got to take advantage of it, which they did. What do you think of their place in these power rankings at number 6? Is it spot on, a little high, a little low?
Given the way that they've played, I think this feels about right. I thought that even before the red card, NYCFC were a superior team to Philly on the day. And maybe that's, again, some CCL hangover, but I also thought Ronnie Dylam made a good call by playing in a 3-5-2 and stretching out that diamond, which allowed the likes of Jesus Medina and Maxi Morales to find gaps in between and really open Philly up and put them under some pressure from the whistle. So I was impressed with the way they played. I was impressed with the way they played last week when they hung 5 on Cincinnati. I thought they were better than DC back in week 1, even though they lost 2-1. This feels about right. The question with NYCFC is what happens when the injuries start to mount, and what happens if and when Tate Castellanos is moved, because there's significant reporting that Palmeiras, who are one of the giants of South American soccer, have come in with a significant offer for him, and there are rumors and some reporting that Castellanos wants to go. He's the only number 9 on this roster right now, with Eber still hurt. So that's 1. And 2 is Maxi Morales is still irreplaceable for them, just in part because he's so good, in part because there's no other number 10 on this roster. And they've been helpless without him. So if they could keep this 18-man roster together for a while and healthy, they could be a top 5 team very easily. But that's not how the MLS season typically works. There are always injuries to deal with. There's squad rotation. And Ronnie Dyla said a month and a half ago, we don't have enough players. We need more players. And they still have basically the same amount of players that they did when he said that. So it's a looming concern, but through 3 games, they've played very well.
Yeah, well said. I think, Ronnie said that before the season even started. He hadn't even played a game. He hadn't faced these issues. He knew they were coming. Right now, this is the time to be building with popsicle sticks and rubber bands.
Yeah.
Because it's not midweek. The back end of this season, you probably won't be able to get away with something like that. And I'm sure NYCFC is looking at that, and Ronnie Dial is looking at that and saying, how sustainable is this when we get a little busier? well, they'll have to figure it out come summer and get some more reinforcements in. And that'll be interesting to see what they do with Tati Castellanos. All right, on to number 7, Philadelphia Union. You said 0% worry about the Crew. How about the Union? Any worry there at all?
More than 0%, but not a ton. The difference is, like, we know that at the highest levels in this league, Zella Ryan is a match winner, Jossie Zardes is a match winner, and that the Crew have a lot of proven depth. We don't really know that Philly have a ton of match winners at the highest levels in this league. We just haven't seen that from them in the playoffs, and they had a wonderful regular season last year and were deserving Supporters Shield winners, and they've played really well through 3 games in CCL. But it's some of those questions are still there for this team. That said, they are clearly a solid team. They have more depth than we thought they would, and they have one of the best coaches in the league, and I kind of trust them to figure it all out.
Yeah, just it goes back to team. You said team how many times in that
a million
spiel there? Yeah, I mean, that's what it is for Philly. If the team is there, if the team collectively is firing, they will win a lot of games, and they'll probably get through tonight. 8 p.m. Eastern, FS1, 2DN. Second leg of that CONCACAF Champions League matchup against Atlanta United. They have a 3-0 aggregate lead. They should waltz right through. But knock on wood, Union fans, when you say that about anything in CCL, you might be wrong. Let's get to the Portland Timbers at number 8. They've been rotating a lot of squads here. That's not what I want to talk about with the Timbers. You may groan here, but Adam Snavely hit me up. You know him as Snabes on Twitter, and he said, I have a stupid idea, and that idea is to tell you which MLS coaches I do not want to fight and perhaps rank them. And personally, the number 1 ranking for me would be Gio Savarese. And Ryan Hollingshead did not get that memo. Gio intimidates me greatly. He's a friendly, jovial man, but he has calves the size of paint cans, and he looks like if he's angry, he could barrel through a brick wall. Snaves, where does he rank in your coaches you'd at least want to fight in MLS rankings?
Oh, hello, everybody. You all made a mistake inviting me onto this space.
You don't say that when you come on. You just jump in and make us regret it. That's usually the way that you want to do that.
So Gio Savarese is definitely up there in coaches I don't want to meet in a bar fight. Definitely. I think that an underrated aspect is how much his eyes bulge when he is any type of excited or emoting at all. It is just a very, very terrifying thing to behold every time he is happy.
It's a signal to de-escalate, to just de-escalate.
Yeah, it's a very, very scary thing, and I think that he kind of tops the list. Other MLS managers that are up there, I would have to say Jaap Stam, because I've seen those Manchester United highlight videos, and I don't really want any piece of it. Peter Vermees for his general demeanor. Bob Bradley slipped a little bit. Might have been number 1 on this list at one point. He's getting a little bit up there in years, so some younger bucks I think have taken over.
No.
But he's
no, you're wrong about that.
Snaves, let me just say, Bob is definitely the MLS coach most likely to know pressure points and just like grab you like by the neck or by the elbow and just drop you with 2 fingers and like minimal exertion on his part.
Also, if you've ever been to an LAFC training, you know that after training ends and Bob's run around the field, that Bob is probably going to hit the exercise bike for a solid hour, and he's going to throw up like 60-pound like deadlift rows and make them look like the easiest thing in the world. The man is physically up to the challenge.
Bob Bradley is another one of those eyes guys. He's got like the eyes of a wolf. And that's a pretty terrifying. And my last person I don't run a fight in a bar is actually Brian Schmetzer. And that is not because of him being scared of him at all. I just don't want to hurt Brian Schmetzer. He seems like such a nice person. I don't want to fight him at all.
Snaves, your instincts here in a bar fight are off with Schmetz. Schmetz would own you. Schmetz would break you in half. He would break all of us in half. I mean, go back and look at some of the pictures from him playing indoor soccer. Like, look at the man's legs. They are he hurt people on the field. And he has that grandpa, that like, oh, I'm a nice grandfather, like, vibe, but no. There's simmering something there that if you cross him, I don't think that you will walk away from it.
And I will say I saw Brian Schmetzer and Eddie Johnson almost go 2v the entire squad against that 2012 San Jose Earthquakes Goonies team. Though the Sounders and the Quakes damn near came to blows at a U.S. Open Cup game at Kaiser Stadium in San Francisco, and Brian Schmetzer basically had to be restrained. It was awesome. So I think you have to adjust your bar fight radar there a little bit, Snaves.
He's the quiet one. You know, the quiet one that initially is very quiet, but is like reading the situation and then handles things. That is Brian Schmetzer. And this has been a wonderful few minutes.
I didn't know that Schmetzer had it like that, but thank you all for enlightening me. On to the Timbers. You guys put them at number 8 for a power ranking?
Oh, come on. There's a lot of us. It's not just us. We're just here to talk about it.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, the Timbers are a weird team to power rank right now, just because it does feel like we are still a little bit ranking them on the team that they could potentially be, as opposed to what they are doing, simply because a lot of their MLS games kind of look like punts right now. I mean, specifically that Dallas game and the lineup they rolled out, that was not a first choice lineup. And that was just very, very obvious for all to see that they were being rested for the midweek game. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm comfortable saying that Portland is definitely better than like Austin or RSL right now.
Well, you're in luck because they're coming.
Yeah, they are.
Coming. Go follow them on Twitter @Snaves. Just because we don't want to be here for 3 hours, we would have the bar fight conversation for that amount of time if we were in an actual bar. Snaves, tell people how they can read your work, man.
Most of my stuff will appear on Twitter, but I run a newsletter for Jimmy Conrad. It's called The Full 90, so it's full90.substack.com. You can also catch us, Jimmy, and the whole gang of miscreants that he has assembled around him on his Twitch channel if you want. So that's twitch.tv/Jimmy Conrad.
Jimmy, love you, man. If you're out there listening, Adam, watch out for Brian Schmetzer. Don't underestimate the man. All right. Let's keep it rolling to Austin at this point. And by the way, John Arnold jumped in. He had a good point. Shellis Heineman, whose career as a soccer coach just ended, was the one that you absolutely would not want to meet. I mean, the man definitely knows the pressure points, and you could not hit him hard enough to even phase him. He's like that guy in the stands in Minnesota. You know, like rocket to the face, just stands right back up, doesn't even look affected. Mike LaHoud is here to talk Austin at number 9. They're up 6 spots. They've won their last 2 games. Mike, are you there, man?
Yes, sir.
Hey, what are you doing?
Ah, man, just gloating about the boys in Verde. How about them boys in Verde?
How much Verde have you added to your wardrobe in the last like 3 or 4 months?
Well, Adrian Healy and I we're coming up with something. I think we're going to get Verde glasses next. So we're all Verde'd out in the wardrobe, and the guys on the field, they're helping the cause so far. Look, 2 road wins out of 3 is an incredible start. LAFC is the only other MLS team that's had a start like this. And it's so hard to be an expansion team, as we all know, and take the show on the road. And the places that they're going in the West, it only gets harder. Shout out to the fans, Los Verde and Austin Anthem. They said that they're going to take over Denver, and they called it Denver Day. They said that they were going to show up in Minneapolistos. And true to their word, now it's on to Kansas City.
I gotta talk about your Danny Houston meter, because we had this discussion on ETR before the season, and I said that Danny Houston as a center forward is probably not going to be optimal. He is goalless in 3 games. I think the team has looked better with John Gallagher in there, but he's not exactly lighting it up either. What are you seeing, and is the number 9 a looming problem for this Austin team?
I think Danny Houston's playing like a man who has so much pressure on his shoulders, and I think it's pressure he's putting on himself first and foremost. Is he gonna put pressure? Is he gonna put pressure on himself to actually head the ball when he's wide open from 3 yards this time? Well, it's getting closer. That's the good news. The fact that for this team, the fact that you have someone like John Gallagher, who's an impact sub, it reminds me of the one word we were on there talking about in the game against Minnesota United is depth. Josh Wolf has someone like a Danny Houston or John Gallagher who can come in and give you something different. Danny Houston will find form at some point. All strikers do. That's the beauty of the parody of MLS is the season ebbs and flows just as the team does. But I'm more buoyed by the fact that John Gallagher is an option, because if it was just Danny Houston missing chances now, I think it would have a big negative impact on the team. But Josh and Claudio have built this team to have plan B, and John Gallagher has been an effective plan B coming off the bench so far.
The other discussion along that front line, well, first of all, Cecilio Dominguez has been a peach of a signing through 3 games, but Jared Stroud was a good little player last year for the Red Bulls, but he has been a level beyond that thus far for Austin FC. Just playing like as a very traditional right winger. He'll come in a little bit, but it's more about staying wide and creating space and then diming crosses right into the 6-yard box.
He gives something that's so different for this team. When you have a dynamic player like Cecilio, who tends to run all over the field, tuck in, sometimes he's out wide, sometimes he's making runs in behind. You need that balance on the other side of having a true winger. What I've seen more of him is his work rate. He is the workhorse of that midfield outside of an Alex Ring.
It's a nice thing to build on, and obviously the midfield has done very, very well. Alex Ring deserving of Team of the Week this year. It's all coming up green, Mike. You're allowed to gloat a little bit. It's all green.
Has he been doing anything but gloat right now?
Here I have, now it's back to reality. So just like every good thing, we have to temper expectations with this group. It gets very real in May. It doesn't get any more real than going to Andrew Weeby's own Sporting Kansas City.
Oh, wow. They give me 1 bottle of whiskey. One free bottle of whiskey, and I just can't shed the label, huh?
Well, this is the start of what I like to call the barbecue cup. You have Austin Barbecue versus Kansas City Barbecue. We'll have to have a separate debate on which one's better. But going to Kansas City is always hard. But this Sporting KC team, they're trying to find who they are this year. Alan Pulido just got his first start, and he got a goal. Johnny Russell hasn't looked like Johnny Russell. They've not really looked like the Kansas City team that we've seen in the past, but you never count them out. They're a team that's waiting for a big result, especially at home, to kickstart their season. And Peter Vermees was looking, pretty good on the sidelines with his silver suit. Maybe he'll change things up, not just with his suit, but with the team. This is a very interesting game for Austin FC. Yes, it's exciting to cover the team. When you get 2 wins out of 3, it's really exciting. But it's how the team does in the next couple weeks. You got Sporting KC, which is a very interesting matchup. Then you go to the Galaxy, where Chicharito has been red hot. He didn't look that way last weekend against Seattle, but who has? Seattle's the best team in MLS right now with how they're playing. And then after that, it's part 2 of the Barbecue Cup, Nashville, and then you play the team that has the biggest target on their back in Seattle. So for Austin FC, if they get through this next stretch in May with wins and the momentum continue to go, then I've got nothing but hype, and I'll be showing up with more than Verde glasses.
All right, look, hey, FS1 on Sunday, it finishes off week 4, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Sporting Kansas City, Austin. I wish I could be there. I am not going to be. I've checked that Sporting KC schedule. I think LAFC is probably the first game that I'll make it to with the boys. So we'll see how that one goes. But my Verde glasses say that Sporting KC's back line and deep line midfield are going to have trouble with all those runners from Austin. Mike, thank you so much for joining. At Mike LaHoud on Twitter. You can hear him on all the Austin broadcasts throughout this year. He's got those Verde glasses and maybe some more as that wardrobe continues to build. All right, let's hit number 10 here, San Jose Earthquakes. We're talking to Alex Morgan here. He covers the Quakes. He's the editor of Quakes Epicenter. He co-host of the Aftershock podcast. They go live after every single game, I believe. Alex, are you there? Can you hear us, man?
Yes, thanks for having me. There's been a lot of buzz around San Jose lately, so I'm glad to be joining y'all.
Yeah, it's early in your time zone right now. But get jacked up. This is the Cade Cowell Hour. We're going to spend the next hour talking about 17-year-old American strikers that look like both maybe like a Major League Baseball closer or an all-state running back or maybe the best prospect in the league right now. I mean, the man has flow, and he's got the production to boot. Mateus Almeida is doing wonderful things with a young player that has a ton of potential.
Yeah, I mean, Cade Cowell really is the answer to the question, I think. What would happen if America's best athletes played soccer? He is just built like an absolute unit. I mean, his speed to get in behind is just breathtaking. It looks like he's tearing up the field when he runs down the wing. And then the strength that he has is just ungodly. I mean, the way he was bullying Dallas and DC United center backs was just ridiculous. He can run around them. He can run through them. And then what really impressed me as well was just how much his touch and his finishing has improved over the offseason. He worked a lot actually with Chris Wondolowski on his finishing during the offseason. And it's just an improved leaps and bounds. I know he had a gorgeous assist to Christian Espinosa in the game against FC Dallas that got Matt Doyle here very excited. And I actually think that his vision is one of his most underrated assets, because he also had that really lovely assist to Jackson Ewell in the game against DC as well.
So Cowell's obviously the big story because he player of the week and doing what he did at 17. I think he's the third youngest player of the week in MLS history. But for true Quakes aficionados, I think you could argue that the play of Eric Remedi in central midfield in the Judson role has been a massive difference between last year without Judson and this year, and just has to be a huge sigh of relief, because this team over the past couple of years was helpless if anybody but Judson was playing as that midfield sort of terrier, ball winner, destroyer. And Remedi has done really well, I thought, the last two games.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I was a little worried actually about Remedi in the middle after their season opener against Houston, because him and Jackson Ewell, I think, struggled in there in the middle, but they've gotten better every game. And I think that's really good for the Quakes because, as you say, they looked totally helpless without Judson last season. And I think having him there has also released Jackson Ewell to go forward a little bit more. And he had that stunning goal against DC, 2 goals actually against DC. And it just feels like the Quakes have a ton more options in the middle now between Judson, Jackson, Remedi. They also have Chofis in that number 10 role, who got his first goal against DC. And so, whereas in 2019 and 2020, everything was basically going through Christian Espinosa on the right. They now have lots of options to attack, and I think that bodes really well for Matias Almeida.
Do you have anything to say to the power rankings voters at MLSsoccer.com who had the Quakes 26th after that week 1 loss? Because I said my piece last week to our power rankings voters.
I mean, I just think it's very hard to rank the Quakes generally because they're so unpredictable. They run very, very hot and very, very cold. So I sympathize with you guys. I think that it was very harsh to so quickly drop them all the way down to the bottom. But I will admit that I was also skeptical about this team heading into the season because they lost a couple very important pieces in Vaco. They lost Nick Lima. They lost Danny Husen. And they didn't really add a ton of pieces. They added Chofis there at that number 10 role. They added Luciano Abacasis at right back, but he hasn't really been fit yet. So I was really worried about this Quakes team heading into this season. But I think, Quakes fans have been very, very pleasantly surprised with how they're doing so far. And I mean, a part of me is still waiting for the other shoe to drop because they're playing, Seattle Sounders. They're playing, Real Salt Lake, who have also been pretty good. And so, a part of me thinks that when they come up against a team that's really organized defensively and can really exploit their weaknesses down the middle, that they're going to struggle. But I think for Quakes fans, they just have to enjoy the success that this team is having right now.
San Jose second in the Western Conference right now on 6 points, up 6 spots in these power rankings to 10. Before I let you go, Alex, I know Doyle wanted to turn off Cade Cowell, but I can't help myself. Tell us about Cade, like in a more personal way. We see him on the field. We're sort of extrapolating his personality based on, the way that he presents himself. But I heard Wando's comments a year ago about Cade Cowell. He was sort of predicting not maybe this, but that something big was coming for the kid. What's he like?
I mean, he's just a very, very hard worker. He has been waking up, since middle school. He has been waking up at like 4 a.m. to do an hour or 2 lift every day. And so I think, that hard work that he's putting in behind the scenes is why, a lot of the Quakes veterans and coaching staff have been so bullish about him. And, it's nice to see that he's also, I think, gaining a lot of confidence. He's speaking a lot more eloquently, and I think in the post-match press conferences now, and on the field, he's also trying a lot more shots. I think after he scored that goal against DC, he was hitting shots from all over the field. And so he's just gaining a ton of confidence right now. And I think at this point for him, the sky's the limit, really.
All right. Tell people how they can catch your work, Alex.
Well, I'm an editor at Quake's Epicenter. We have a star-studded team, if I might say, of Robert Jonas, my colleague Jamin Moore, Colin Etnier. So everybody should check out all the work we're doing at Quake's Epicenter. And then I also host a YouTube show called The Aftershock, and we are live after every game streaming from PayPal Park. And we carry Matias Almeida's post-match press conference, which is always entertaining. And so, yeah, that's where you can check me out.
All right. Thanks, Alex. We appreciate your time, man. Really excited about the Quakes right now. That is your top 10 for these power rankings in week 3. If you'd like to watch them back, I saw somebody tweet, hey, I wanted to see the Sounders conversation, but I missed it. We're going to put this up on YouTube. It'll be up later today. So look out for that on the MLS channel on YouTube. All right.